Welcome back to this series of conversations, the Dark Reading News Desk at RSA. I'm Terry Sweeney with Dark Reading, and joining me now is Paul Zimski, VP of Product Strategy with Automox. Paul, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Terry. Pleasure to be here.
We are talking about patch management in I guess, nearly the third quarter, I guess second quarter of 2022. Describe, if you would, the state of the art and at least how patch management is practiced by the majority of InfoSec professionals.
Yeah, sure. So state of the art today, when we talk about patch management, it's a problem space that's been around for decades. If we looked at what state of the art would look like today, it'd be SecOps and IT Ops teams being able to respond and react to new vulnerabilities within minutes, hours, days. Tools that communicate with each other, automation across the board. Unfortunately, when we engage with our customers and we look at surveys and sort of where we are as an industry, typically we're not seeing folks operate at state of the art. I think the last figure I saw on how fast organizations can respond to vulnerabilities was 187 days.
Wow.
And to give you an example, I could go out into my backyard right now, plant a seed, grow a vegetable, and eat it faster than most organizations can respond to a critical vulnerability.
That's hardly leading edge.
Yeah, no. So that's sort of state of the union. We know where we want to be. There's tooling and platforms and integrations that exist. We actually announced one today, but that's state of the union.
So Dark Reading surveys our readership regularly on this topic of patch management. For years now, it has figured among their biggest and sorest pain points. Why is it continuing to be such a challenge?
Yeah, so I think there's two main areas here. One is that the tools that we use today for patch management were largely architected in a different era. They were built as sort of legacy on-premise tooling with the idea that you were going to be, as an organization, we're going to create your own content delivery network, that you were going to have the staff to scale, and that your surface area of assets that you're managing and the vulnerabilities that you were trying to scale to were within scope. The other area where we're struggling from a patch management perspective is how organizations are organized. There's typically a security function, a SecOps function that goes out and finds problems, and they pass those problems over the fence to the IT Ops organization. And there's just not a lot of synergy and fluidity between those two groups. So part technology, part human.
And seemingly part organizational. I mean, it strikes me that the arcane methods that you cited earlier weren't designed to deal with the volume of patching that are coming down the pike.
Correct. We've got to, 10 years ago, if you were moving within weeks or months, that was almost okay. Right now, if you're not reacting and eliminating vulnerabilities within minutes, then you have exposure.
Cloud-based patching services have obviously begun to emerge. Talk a bit about how this changes the equation and how it works alongside these mostly homegrown sets of policies and practices for patch management.
Yeah, and moving to a cloud-based service or a cloud-native SaaS-based patching service is really modernizing the way that organizations manage their practices. We were moving away from having to have that centralized network of management where endpoints and users have to VPN in for connectivity, and simply moving to internet-delivered management. So if a system is online, cloud-based services give continuous telemetry into those systems and control. There's nothing to maintain or care and feed from a maintenance perspective. So it's really giving organizations the efficiency that they need, the visibility that they need, and ultimately the power they need to affect any change across their infrastructure.
I think you may have alluded to this a few minutes ago, but one of the other challenges that patch managers have going is the testing challenge.
Mm-hmm.
Patch managers want to test patches before they deploy them just to avoid the unexpected, I guess. Talk a bit about how automated patch management, cloud-based patch management, handles that testing piece.
Yeah, so there's a couple areas there. One is, there's a constant balance between I would need to move fast, I need to affect change, and I need to shrink my exposure to vulnerability versus how much operational risk am I willing to bring into my organization. Automation can help you dramatically with deploying certain types of change or patches to certain areas of your infrastructure to do sort of smoke testing or canary testing. And then once you get a high degree of confidence that you haven't seen any production impacts, then you can roll that into or progressively roll that into the rest of your environment. Without automation, there's an awful lot of interactive, clicking of the keyboard literally to make the same work or same recipe happen over and over again into different sets of assets. So automation really has the ability to dramatically reduce the labor hour calculus on applying the same change across your organization.
Are we effectively talking about some form of platform as a service or infrastructure as a service with these automated patch management services?
I think of it more in terms of a declarative automation. I know that I want certain types of content or change to always be applied to certain areas of my infrastructure. Why can't I put that into motion through automation, through a declarative policy that says, hey, critical vulnerabilities on Mac devices should always be applied to the C-suite within this amount of time in my environment. So taking that as an example, with just a few declarative policies like that, organizations can pretty easily account for most of their use cases in terms of automating change. And then if there's any sort of outlier use case or infrastructure or areas that need a little bit more attention, those can be dealt with on a one-off basis.
Okay. Switching gears slightly, help us understand a bit better what automated vulnerability remediation is.
Yeah, so we announced this week AVR, or Automated Vulnerability Remediation, and really what it is the ability for us to have a platform-to-platform integration with combining vulnerability management and patch management. Our inaugural partner in this is Rapid7, and what we're doing is ingesting the vulnerability scans from Rapid7 into Automox, mapping the CVEs or vulnerabilities directly to known patches. Anything that has that's a configuration vulnerability, we're mapping that to what we call worklets, which is our ability to create our packaged scripting actions. Loading that into our workflow for IT operators to then review and distribute across the environment. So what this does is it takes two separate platforms, two separate teams, and completely creates an automated workflow between the two. It dramatically reduces the amount of time it takes to rationalize and affect change or remediation across an org. And it also it overcomes that organizational friction of two different organizations, tools that don't communicate or platforms that don't communicate, and really closes that loop.
Paul, lots of great insights around automated patch management and automated vulnerability remediation. Thanks for joining us on the Dark Reading News Desk today.
I appreciate the time.
We've been talking with Paul Zimski of Automox. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.